Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to another special series on the Compliance Podcast Network of Adventures in Compliance. Over the next 5 podcast episodes, we're going to take a look at stories from the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes and what they can tell us and inform us about both leadership and your compliance program. We will consider the Illustrious Client, the Blanched Soldier, the Adventure of the Marrow's Stone, the Adventures of the Three Gables, and conclude with the Adventure of the Sussex Vampire. I know you will find it illuminating, and as an aficionado of Sherlock Holmes, it's a lot of fun. Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. The Adventures of the Illustrious Client. In today's offering, I consider the adventure of the illustrious client and its relationship to the humble reference check. The story opens when Sir James Damery comes to see Holmes and Watson about his illustrious client's problem. General de Merville's younger daughter Violet has fallen in love with a roguish and sadistic Austrian baron who Damery and Holmes are convinced is a shameless philanderer and a murderer. The victim of his last wife, whose murder he was acquitted owing to a legal technicality and a witness's untimely death. She met her end at the Splungen Pass. Holmes finds out that the Baron has expensive taste and is a collector and a recognized authority on Chinese pottery. Holmes' first step is to go see the Baron, who is amused to see Holmes trying to play a hand with no cards in it. The Baron will not be moved and claims that his charm is more potent than even a post-hypnotic suggestion in conditioning Violet's mind to reject anything bad that might be said about him. The Baron tells the story of Lebrun, a French agent who was crippled for life after being beaten by thugs after making similar inquiries into the Baron's personal business. Holmes gets some help with his mission in the form of Shinwell Johnson, a former criminal who now acts as an informer for Holmes in the London underworld. Johnson rakes up Miss Kitty Winter, the Baron's last mistress, who was ruined because of her relationship. She has been on revenge and will do anything to help Holmes. Kitty tells Holmes that the Baron collects women and chronicles his conquest in a book. Holmes realizes that this book, written in Grunner's own hand, is the key to curing Violet of her devotion to the scoundrel. Kitty tells Holmes that the book is kept in the Baron's study. Holmes goes to see Violet, bringing Kitty with him, but Violet is proof against Holmes' words. Kitty makes clear that Violet might end up dead if she is foolish enough to marry Gruner. Then Holmes is attacked by 2 men, and the newspaper implies that he is near death. Watson goes to 221B Baker Street, only to discover Holmes' injuries have been exaggerated to give the impression that he will be out of action for a while. The Baron is planning a trip abroad. Just before the wedding, he will be leaving in 3 days. Holmes knows that Gruner will take his incriminating book with him, never daring to leave it behind in the study. Watson is sent by Holmes to the Baron's residence to try to sell him a piece of Ming china. As Watson faces his murderous captor, a noise in another room alerts the Baron, and he rushes in the study just in time to see Holmes jump out the window. He's managed to steal the book. The Baron rushes to the window, but Kitty Winter, who's been hiding outside, throws acid in the Baron's face. The Baron is now hideously disfigured, but Holmes says it will not put Violet off. They still need the book to cure her. When Violet sees the Book of Conquest, written in her fiancé's handwriting, she realizes what a rogue he is, and their marriage is off. This story illustrates the topic, or leads into the topic, of the reference check. Why is hiring so important for compliance? Because it is in hiring that the company's health and reputation is created. Like most areas of good compliance, good hiring practices for those employees who will do business in compliance with anti-corruption laws or simply a good business practice. And one thing that is often overlooked in the hiring process is the reference check. While many compliance practitioners and indeed others feel that the reference check is not of value because people will only list people who will give glowing references, this leads to a pro forma reference check. However, this misconception misviews the entire hiring process. It could be a valuable and useful tool for your compliance. You need to look at 3 steps in your hiring process: resume review, in-person interview, and reference checks. Resumes are good for establishing the basic qualifications, but not much else. The primary problem with in-person interviews is they are skewed in favor of persons who are well-spoken and present well. The key is the reference check. References are really the only way to learn things. The way to use a reference check is to dig up people who will speak candidly. While it may be difficult for those listed on a reference sheet or a resume to do so, one of the key strengths of search firms is that they will engage in a significant reference check process. You must invest in your company in the hiring process to get the right people. The same is really true for compliance. And think about how you can weed out those who really should not be a part of your company simply from the compliance perspective. The hiring of a person who will perform business activities in compliance with anti-corruption laws such as the FCPA will continue to be as much art as science, because the hiring of quality employees for senior management positions is difficult. But that does not mean a company cannot work to hire those persons who might have a propensity to engage in bribery and corruption if the situation presents itself. The hiring process is just one more tool that can be utilized to build an effective and operationalized compliance program. I hope you'll join us tomorrow in our continuation of Adventures in Compliance and stories from the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, where we look at the adventures of the blanched soldier and learning to ask for help. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Adventures in Compliance. If you have any questions on anything I've talked about, please feel free to contact me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Adventures in Compliance has been a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network.